Welcome into a brand new edition of WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock with Jeff Upson as we break down this past week's wrestling results from within the WPIAL and try our best to look ahead. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the show. But one tournament that was able to go off, and the biggest one I think to date so far this season, and it was the Midwinter Mayhem happening at Monroeville Convention Center. 32 teams in all, broken down into two different tournaments, two divisions. And let's first start by talking about the Division 1. And we'll look at it ended up placing out to the top 8, but we'll really focus on the top 4 place finishers from the tournament, just so that way then, in the space of time. But when you look at 106 pounds for the WPIAL, a couple of place winners, Shane Simpson of Pine-Richland finishing in second, Carson Handra of Norwin finishing in third place. Good tournament for Simpson.
Yeah, Simpson, he wrestled tough. He kind of a little bit more of an unknown coming into the tournament, but yeah, he wrestled pretty well, all things considered. 106 in both divisions was really wide open, in my opinion. So for him to come away with a top 4 finish was good.
At 113 pounds, Anthony Ferraro of Pine-Richland finishes in fourth place. At 120 pounds, you had a stacked finals matchup, Mason Gibson and Owen Reinzel. So kudos to Ethan Lieben and Lou Passarelli, Lieben from Hempfield, Passarelli of Norwin. They wrestled for third and fourth. Lieben winning that one 5-3, but Lieben wrestling tough throughout the whole tournament.
Yeah, I mean, after his performance at the North Allegheny tournament, it was kind of the question of how is he going to be at 120. But I think he wrestled tough considering Mason Gibson and Owen Reinzel were right there, and him and Passarelli, I think those two could go back and forth on any given day, to be honest.
126 pounds, returning state champ Ethan Bergen of Hempfield falls just short of winning a title. He drops a 9-7 loss to Spencer Barnhart of Malvern Prep.
And that was a crazy match. You had a returning state champion in Ethan Bergnick, and Barnhart was just able to outlast him 9-7. Barnhart was like a mini Nick Feldman. We were talking about that yesterday on the broadcast, and he's super stacked. He's really strong, and I think Bergnick's just trying to get back into the swing of things. Honestly, I think all the wrestlers are, to be honest. They're just trying to get back into shape and wrestling shape. So I don't think this is I think this is a minor setback for Ethan. I think he's going to be just fine.
I think the question coming into the season for Ethan was, how's he going to do at 126? Being up a couple of weight classes. How did he look in filling out the weight?
I thought that too. I was kind of curious to see how he was going to look at 26. I think he looks good. I don't, Barnhart is, he's a physical specimen, so I think it's hard to say. Comparing him to Barnhart, it's hard to do, but I do believe that he looks, good for the weight. I don't think he's undersized, so I would be surprised to see if he drops. To be honest, I just can't see. He looks like he put on some muscle. So, I'm excited to see, because 26. Carter Dybert's there. Potentially, you're going to have Dylan Chappell drop from 32. So, you're going to have 3 guys that were all state finalists and state champs, so it's going to be really interesting if those all 3 end up at 126 in the WPIAL.
Well, especially with how deep 120 is, though, in WPIAL as well. It's definitely 2 tough weight classes to see how it plays out. And Ethan Bergen and Carter Diver were in the same weight class last year as well. So
right.
I think it'll be a nice head-on collision. 132 pounds, Briar Priest of Hempfield finishes in second place. He drops a 10-5 decision to Jackson Arrington of Forest Hills, a one-time state champion, the junior from Forest Hills. So that was the big finish for Hempfield's Briar Priest.
Yeah, and Eric and I both said we thought Briar Priest looked pretty good for the weight. He's up from 106 to 132. He was a Powerade runner-up last year at 106 pounds. He had beaten Vincent Kilkeary multiple times last year, and now he's up to 132, and I thought he wrestled really well. Jackson Arrington's just on a different level, and I just, there's no fault in him losing to Jackson Arrington, but, you're finishing ahead of guys like Ross Dahl and Connor Heckman, so Priest looked pretty good against Heckman. I thought he wrestled really well throughout the weekend, so I think this is a good stepping stone for Briar Priest, especially being up at 132 pounds.
At 138, and joining us here in just a second, Kellen Laffey of Pine-Richland, a great tournament. He ends up winning the championship, defeating Reid Fulmer of Malvern Prep 10-8. Also at 138 pounds, Lucas Capusta of Hempfield finishes in third place, and he beats Luke Geibig of Mount Pleasant 5-0.
Yeah, and this was a deep weight class, right? You had, obviously Kellen, but Reid Fulmer's is a really solid wrestler that we've seen from Malvern Prep. You had Lucas Capusta, who was a North Allegheny champion a week ago, and Luke Geibig from Mount Pleasant he's been on the scene for quite a while. You had Bowman from Chestnut Ridge, so it was a deep weight class, and I thought Kellen really came out strong and just. He really dominated the competition. He looked hungry, he looked aggressive, and I'm excited to talk to him just to see what his thoughts were in his first big tournament of the year.
Let's go ahead and turn over now and see if we can chat with Kellen on the phone to see how he felt things went on his end.
Absolutely. So we're going to be joined now by Kelin Laffey of Pine-Richland. He's a junior. Kellen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your weekend. You had a good performance at the Midwinter Mayhem. What were your thoughts coming into it? Having the first big event of the year for you. What was your thoughts coming into the tournament and really the season in general?
My main focus, was just kind of making weight because I haven't had to make weight in a while, so that was kind of a big thing to do. Wrestled Wednesday, so we got 2 pounds, so that was nice. But yeah, that was my big thing about making weight. Once you make weight once, it's pretty easy, I think. Next,
right. And I got to talk to your coach a little bit, Caleb Kolb, about just your style, and he really said he was like he just goes out there every match and he just wants to win every single match, every single point. And that was pretty evident this weekend. I feel like you were just going out there scrapping, wrestling hard, a lot of aggression. What's your mindset like on the mat? Because you're back to 138. You're at a weight class that I think you look pretty good at. Did you feel pretty good?
yeah, I felt pretty good. I felt a little slow on my feet yesterday, but my top I thought was pretty good. Everything else was, I think, pretty good, but my feet were real slow, not very good.
Yeah, talk about that finals match with Reid Fulmer from Malvern Prep. He's a tough opponent, man, and you guys were battling back and forth. It seemed like it could go either way, but it had to feel pretty good to come out of that on top. And just take us through that match a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was down, I think 4-1 before, or 4-2 before like everything really started. He got it in pretty fast. And then once he threw a boot in, I knew I was going to be able to get out. So that was my first escape. And then he took me down, I'm pretty sure, again. And then I got out, I reversed him, and I got a cheap like wipes at the end of it that put me up, I think, 4-5. So after that, I felt pretty good.
Yeah, and you had mentioned being down, and you were able to bounce back from that and end up with the win. But talk about just your career thus far. You got 60+ wins in your junior year. You have been a regional qualifier, but have yet to break through and make it to the state tournament. I said it on the broadcast. I think you're going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's probably a year, not to put pressure on you. It seems like a year that you're probably going to do really well in. What has been the biggest boost for you, since COVID, and what have you been doing to really stay hungry?
Well, this year I normally don't wrestle all year round, but because of COVID, I sometimes play lacrosse and golf, so those all got canceled. So I was able to play just wrestle the whole summer. So that was kind of very big for me. I lifted a lot. I got up to about like 155 ish, and then I was like, I probably have to get down. So I kind of stopped lifting for a little bit and focused on getting back down. So, and yeah, that was kind of it.
So 155 to 138. That's a nice little jump, and
Yeah,
you seemed like you took the weight pretty easily, pretty well. Because I actually said this yesterday. I was like, man, I'm kind of surprised that he's already down to 138. kind of, and I say
Yeah.
early in the season, even though it's you just haven't wrestled at all. So I guess like you said, the main goal yesterday was to make weight, and you did more than that. You wrestled pretty well too.
Mhm. Well, what was it? Last my freshman and sophomore year, I said I wanted to go 13 my freshman year. Then I think I went up to 20, didn't make 13, and then my sophomore year I wanted to go 26, and I was up at 32. This year I wanted to go 38. So this is the first year I like made my true weight.
Now,
So that's
what
pretty good.
kind of a weird season, right, for you this year with COVID and with the uncertainty of everything going on. Coming into the season, what are your goals? You like I said, regional qualifier 2 times, very close to making it to the state tournament. Have battled with a lot of guys that have made it to the state tournament. Always I feel like you're always in a pretty deep weight class. So, and 38 is probably not going to be it's going to be a pretty deep weight class again this year. Cole Hammett, Finn Solomon, so you're going to have your hands full. What are your goals coming into this kind of weird and uncertain season?
I'm just trying to make it to the podium this year. Hopefully I can, and just stay healthy because I feel like a lot of people could drop out pretty fast because of COVID. So
Right.
staying healthy is pretty important.
What are your feelings on the team overall? We got to see Cole Spencer, Shane Simpson was a guy who did well. What are your thoughts on the team? It looks like you guys wrestled really well.
Yeah, we all wrestled pretty well. Cole did good. Shane did really good. Anthony did really good. But I think our team should be pretty. After this, we lost to NA a couple last Wednesday, and I just think everything's going to start clicking pretty soon, and I think we should have a pretty good chance for our team to make it to like WPIALs or pretty far into WPIALs.
And what's the next big thing that Pine-Richland has on the schedule? I know it's always it's always up in the air, but what is the next thing you guys have scheduled? What's the next big thing?
I The big thing is probably Powerade. Is that in 2 weeks? I think this week, next week, sometime. Um, and I think we have a tournament this weekend,
Okay.
like a team tournament this weekend.
Okay. Well, looking forward to seeing you battle with some of those guys like we had mentioned, maybe Cole Hammett, Finn Solomon, and whoever else is down there at the time at 138. But I thought you looked really good this weekend, and I'm sure it felt good to get back on the mat and come out with a championship at the Midwinter Mayhem.
Yep. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Kellen, for joining us, and we'll see you very soon, okay?
See you. Have a good day.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Greg, so Kellen Laffey, man, I thought he looked really sharp this weekend. I thought he wrestled really tough, really aggressive. And like I said on the interview, he's a guy who's been on the bubble. He's been very close to making it to the state tournament. I think had this not been a COVID year, I think he would probably be definitely going to the state tournament. But now it's just like, you just don't know, right? You just don't know what's going to happen. So, but I again thought he looked really good to start the season. So, very impressed with him. Right. Yeah. Yeah, he really was. Right. Yeah, and you're right. I thought, just watching him this weekend, and really watching a lot of the guys. I thought when you look at the WPIAL, John Altieri, and the Norman guys, they were really really good. I thought John Altieri, I thought Chase Krantz, I thought all those guys wrestled really tough. I thought Brian Finnerty of TJ, I thought the TJ guys wrestled really well. So we're seeing these guys that they're not the Waynesburg guys like the Wyatt Hensons and the Cole Hammets and Luke Augustines, but these are the guys that I think are really going to battle when it comes down to it. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are really competing for a spot in those regions and those super regions. And I think their competition is going to be pretty tight, especially like Kellen said, you just don't know who's going to be in and who's going to be out based on COVID. So there's a lot of uncertainties with, his goal being to stay healthy. I think that's a great thing because you don't hear that a whole lot. You don't hear wrestlers say, my goal is to stay healthy. It's normally, hey, I want to win this, I want to win that. But in this day and age, I think that's obviously it's an important thing for you to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And moving forward now into 145 pounds, you mentioned Norwin and Thomas Jefferson. John Altieri winning by major decision. Very impressive tournament for him. He beats Cale Bakaizo of Thomas Jefferson 9-1. Just really wrestling super well in getting that title.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him throughout the weekend. He wrestled Jack Pletcher when Latrobe wrestled Norwin, bumped up to 52, really took it for him, really took it to him. And this weekend, I mean, the guys that were in his weight class, he had Matt Lehan from General McLean, Dustin Flynn from Forest Hills, and Cale Bakaizo, who I'm very high on. I think that trio of TJ wrestlers with Bakaizo and with Finnerty. And I really think that those guys are going to really push the pace with a lot of these guys in the Whitbill and Mikey Zakor. I forgot about Mikey Zakor. He wrestled in the third place match against Ty Linsenbigler at 52. But these are guys that have been there for multiple years, have been close. Is this their year, right? And of course, this is the year where we're not seeing as many people make it to the regions and super regions and even out of the section. So these are the guys that are going to be hurt by that because they're the ones I think coming out of the sections can probably battle with a lot of these top tier, top name guys.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you 100%. You're looking forward to at 152 pounds, WPIAL well represented. Grant Mckay of Laurel ends up knocking off Ty Linsenbigler of Hempfield in a semifinal and then drops a 5-2 decision to Eric Gibson in the finals. And Linsenbigler comes back and gets a big major decision over Michael Zakir, like you mentioned, a 12-4 victory. But overall, how about the performance of Grant Mckay?
Yeah, I mean, Grant wrestled really well. I just thought he was more physical than Ty was in that match. And, Eric Knopfsnyder and I talked about this during the match. He just looked mean and in a good way, right? And he was able to get to his offense, control the match, kind of control the pace. He was really tough from top. He just looked strong. So, yeah, he wrestled really well. And even against Eric Gibson, in the first period, it was I believe it was scoreless after the first period. It was close, right? Those guys were getting into flurries. Gibson was taking more shots, but you could tell Grant was getting comfortable in certain positions. But the problem with Gibson is he's so relentless and his in-match adjustments are really, really smart and really good. So he was able to go, switch up his offense to kind of appease to Grant's style. So, but Grant knocking off Ty, I think, was a huge boost for him. Kind of like we said with Kellen, I was surprised to see Grant already down at 152 for the start of the season because, he was a bigger freshman last year when he was a state qualifier, so kind of surprised to see him down there already. But, man, that was a deep weight class. And then Ty Linsenbigler came back in the third place match in a strong way, beating Mikey Zakor by major decision. So, obviously he's not going away quietly, that's for sure.
Do you expect Gibson to stay at 152?
Yeah, I definitely do. That's if he's eligible because the District 6 ruled him ineligible, which we'll talk about on the Power Hour with Eric and I. But I do believe that he'll probably stay 52. He looks thick, man. He looks big, and I just think that's probably the weight that he's going. But hey, who knows? I mean, this season is anything's possible.
I mean, provided he stays eligible. Because of the transfer rules, some of those in WPIAL may not know. Eric Gibson going from Forest Hills to Bishop McCourt. If he stays eligible, he and Grant Mckay could realistically wrestle at least 3 more times.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the AJ Corrado and Eric Gibson wrestling a whole bunch, or Caleb Dowling and Ian Oswalt wrestling a bunch. You have all these guys that they could wrestle multiple weeks in a row. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see these two meet multiple weekends in a row, including the regions and potentially the state finals. So that's saying something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And at the very least, I think for sure region and super region in states. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, who knows? 160 pounds, Cole Spencer of Pine-Richland falling just short of winning a title. He drops a 4-2 decision to Avery Bassett of Midwest. Also at 160, Chase Kranitz of Norwin, a third-place finisher with a 7-3 win over Jackson Spires of General McLean.
Yeah, and this was one of the deepest weight classes of the entire tournament. You had Avery Bassett, a state medalist, fourth place. You had, third place. You had Cole Spencer from Pine-Richland, a fourth place finisher last year at the state tournament, a two-time state medalist, going to Penn. Avery Bassett is a guy who's going to George Mason University. Really, really tough match there. He was just able to win the positional battle with Cole Spencer. He was getting in pretty deep in shots, and Cole was just unable to counter it. But Cole had a great tournament nonetheless because he beat Jackson Spires, who's a state medalist last year. I thought Chase Krantz had a really good tournament. Again, him and John Altieri are really a good 1-2 punch there for Norwin. I was very impressed overall with Norwin. In fact, I was talking to some coaches from the WPIAL there, and they're like, man, Kyle Martin's already got these Norwin guys really, really fired up and really going and wrestling well early. So I was impressed with Norwin. I was impressed with Chase Krantz. But, yeah, Cole Spencer, I think he likes to have those matches early on. He beat Colin McCorkle of North Allegheny. He beat him by, I believe, major decision, 9-1. I could be wrong on that, but it wasn't close. And we saw him go to ultimate tiebreaker with AJ Corrado. So, I think Cole Spencer is wrestling really tough despite that loss to Avery Bassett, and I think this is only going to help him down the road because we've seen Cole kind of go throughout the season, maybe not entirely tested, and then regions he's we saw it his sophomore year where he didn't make it to the state tournament after winning a medal there as a freshman. So I think this is a really good step for him. And like I said, 160 here was really, really deep.
172 pounds, Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson. He is your champion. Also, Noah Nibus of Mount Pleasant finishing in third place.
Yeah, and I think Finnerty got a new fan in Eric Knopsteiner. Eric and I kept on talking about how Finnerty out there just was like so calm, cool, and collective on the mat. It was crazy. Like he never looked like he got flustered. He never looked like he wasn't really showing much emotion, but he just seemed like, hey, I'm going to go out here and I'm wrestling, and never really got how they say, like, never let him see you sweat. Well, he never looked like that. He wrestled really tough. Andrew Connolly is a very tough wrestler, and Finnerty was able to control that match in a 3-0 decision for him. So, and you had some other tough guys. Magnus Lloyd was there, Jacob Luquez from Pine-Richland. So, and including Noah Guybus, like you said, and Jackson Zimmerman. So it was a tough weight class, and Finnerty looked solid. Of those three, Mikey Zakor and Cale Bacaizo, I thought Finnerty looked really sharp, and I expect big things from him this year.
189, Logan Hoffman of Bell Vernon. He finished in second place, and also Josh Page of Norwin. He finishes in fourth place. 215 pounds, the WPIAL well represented, a couple of strong wrestlers meeting in the semis. Dayton Pitzer of Mount Pleasant finishing in second. Cole Waitman of Bell Vernon finishing in third place. Nicholas Feldman of Malvern Prep is on a whole different level. I mean, he's just nationally one of, if not the best. But talk about, first off, Pitzer and Waitman in the semis.
Yeah, that was a fun match. Two guys that have a lot of respect for each other, both juniors. Dayton's an undersized 215-pounder for sure. We had mentioned this on the broadcast, how he's definitely a victim of that 195-pound weight class disappearing, because I think he would be a perfect 195-pounder, but he wrestled tough. He wrestled Waitman tough. Waitman was right in there with him. I think it was a big test for Pitzer, especially before going against Feldman, being back on the mat for the first time in a very long time. It was a good match. I think both wrestlers wrestled tough. I think the first first period was a very strong hand fighting. A lot of attacks. I really do think that these two could wrestle 3 or 4 more times, and it could be it could go up in the air. I don't know. Now Feldman, on the other hand, that's a whole. He's on a whole another another universe compared to the rest of the planet here. He's on a different level. He's wrestling really tough. He's good from all positions. We saw it in the finals against Pitzer. he really took it to him, getting a major decision. So, I think Feldman is just enjoys wrestling so much that he just comes out there and likes to score points and likes to win matches, big matches. So Pitzer shouldn't hang his hat on that. Again, he's an undersized 215-pounder, and that was his first time back in a long time against the one of the pound-for-pound best wrestlers in the nation. I think probably the pound-for-pound best wrestler in the state of Pennsylvania, in my opinion. So, nothing to be ashamed about for that.
So I guess two questions in regards to Pitzer. One would be, how did he look health-wise? Did he seem like he's 100%? And two, do you think he potentially could go down to 189?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's right around like 200. So I think that extra 10 pounds is probably a little much for him to drop. I thought he looked healthy. You didn't see any real indication of any type of injury. He wasn't wearing like a massive brace or anything like that. Just a knee sleeve. I thought he looked good. I mean, of course, it's early in the season. Despite it being January, so I think a lot of these wrestlers are still trying to get back into. And don't forget, he hasn't. I mean, Nick Feldman has not really stopped wrestling since winning a national prep championship. He's wrestled in a lot of different tournaments over the season. He's wrestled in True Power. He beat Nathan Taylor, who we're going to talk about in a second. He wrestled in Flo's Who's Number One, got a win there. So Nick Feldman's battle tested already. For Dayton Pitzer, this was a very big test for him after that big injury. So I thought he looked great. I just think he needs to get back into his winning ways and get back into wrestling shape and get back to just getting his hand raised. To be honest, I think Pitzer looks fine though. Health wise, I thought he looks great. I don't see any issues there.
Mentioned 285 pounds. Nathan Taylor of Brookville does drop a 3-1 decision to Isaiah Vance of Hempfield. Vance winning the title there, and in third place it was Mitch Miles of Laurel. He defeats Joey Schneck of Pine-Richland by fall. Schneck finishing in fourth.
Yeah, I thought Vance looked great because, Nathan Taylor, he kind of poses a different challenge for a lot of different heavyweights because he is a more agile, more athletic heavyweight. He's up from 220. He looks really good. They were in some funky positions, some scramble positions, and I think Isaiah's weight, the weight difference, he was able to use that to his advantage. But this is a match that I thought for a heavyweight battle, it was a really good match. Isaiah Vance is a state runner-up. He's one of the top heavyweights in the state. And Nathan Taylor was right there with him. But Vance is just, I think that was the first match he had all year that went the distance, to be honest, because he pinned everyone at the NA tournament in the first period. He pinned most of his opponents here in the first period. So for him to go the distance and wrestle a tough Nathan Taylor, very impressed with him.
You look at the other tournament that happened as well in the same convention center, and the top four there for the WPIAL. At 106 in fourth place, it was Mickey Horn of Trinity. At 113 pounds, Antonio Giordano of Kiski finishing in third place. And at 120 pounds, Ryan Klingensmith of Kiski winning the title there. And also Hayden Coy of Penn Trafford finishing in fourth place.
Yeah, I was impressed with Klingensmith. He had a nice win in the finals there against Gabe Ladich from Berlin. He came out with a first period pin. I was impressed with Blake Reiner from Trinity, and also Bodie Morgan from Trinity. He came out and just poured it on Austin Mitchell from Du Bois. He really looked strong. I'm excited to see Bodie Miller as a freshman at Trinity. He beat Tyler Soule from Cannon Mac 1-0 in a dual meet earlier this week. So, Bodie Morgan's is a guy who I think is going to get better as the year goes on. So him and Reiner expect big things out of them for this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Reiner. He finishes in first at 126. Ryan Olapen Trafford finishing in third, 132. Actually, Jesse Galato of West Mifflin finishing in third place, 138 for the WPIAL. It was Ethan Connor of Kiski finishing in fourth, 145. Bodie Morgan of Trinity wins the title there. And Dylan Karstetter of West Mifflin finishing in fourth place, 152 pounds. Lucas Pazik of Penn Trafford, he finished in second. And at 160 pounds, you started to get into the Kiski stars here. Enzo Morlacki, he wins the title at 160 pounds. Tony Salopek of West Mifflin finished in third. Sammy Starr took home a title at 172. 189, Braden Roskoski of Kiski also winning a title for the Cavaliers. And then 215, Ty Banco of Trinity, he finished in second place. Howie Congdon of West Mifflin finished in third. Carter Diltz of Kiski in fourth. And at 285, Tyson Brophy of Trinity in second. Joseph Enick of Penn Trafford in third. And Jake Kreider of Kiski in fourth. What were your thoughts overall on the bottom half of the weights?
Yeah, I thought you had mentioned, I saw what you did there with the stars of Kiski. I don't know if that was a reference to Sammy Starr or not, but those three, the big three for Kiski, wrestled their butts off, man. Enzo Muraki's on a different level. I don't know what he did over this offseason, but he looks like an entirely different wrestler. I'm very impressed with him. He came out and just dominated state qualifier Jack Rimpa 14-3, just taking it to him. I mean, I think he wanted to go another period too, like just to get the tech fall. So Enzo's looking great. I thought Lucas Pazik from Penn Trafford looked good, although he did drop it an overtime match to Gavin Stewart in the finals. Sammy Starr, he beat Gage Musser, who's a state medalist, fourth last year. He's very tough, and Sammy Starr kind of just dominated. Sammy's on a different level as well. I'm really excited to see him and Luke Augustine lock horns, because I think those two are gonna. Sammy Starr's just unpredictable, man. He's fun. He wrestles without any fear. So very impressed with him, and likewise with teammate Braden Roskoski. You know, he dominated. He didn't have. I think he only had 2 matches. 89 was missing a lot of wrestlers, and he just dominated. You know, he wasn't really tested too much. Ty Banco, Berbichok from Berlin really just kind of out-muscled him, out-dueled him in that one. Marvin Beatty, he's one of the best heavyweights in the state. He pins Tyson Brophy, so, you know, again, no shame there. But overall, very impressed with the Kiski Cavaliers trio there of Starr and Enzo Meraki and Braden Roskoski. I thought they all wrestled really tough and really strong. In fact, I would have liked to see them in the Division I, you know, because there were some deep weight classes. 160, for example, Enzo. I would have loved to see him and Cole Spencer.
Yeah, or and then Avery Bassett as well in that mix. That would have been then you have Chase Kranitz, who wrestled well. I mean, that just been a deep weight class would have went even deeper. And you look at just Kiski overall, I thought they wrestled very well in the tournament. A lot of top 4 finishes in that Division II tournament.
Yeah, there were, and you know, again, just the way it all kind of got laid out. That's just the way that it was, but. I was excited to see some of these guys back on the mat. It's been a long time since we saw a lot of these guys, so you know, and a lot of people just were happy to be there wrestling, right? So they just wanted to be out there wrestling, and that's what they did. So it was good. It was fun.
Had some duels take place as well this past weekend. One was at Cannon-McMillan. 4 teams participating there: Canon-Mac, Erie Prep, Connellsville, and Latrobe. And here are the scores from all those matches. Erie Prep defeats Cannon-McMillan 30-24. Cannon-McMillan over Connellsville 45-15. Erie Prep over Latrobe 39-26. Latrobe over Connellsville 36-31. Cannon-Mac over Latrobe 40-27. Then Erie Prep over Connellsville 54-17. And you look at those matches. One, you know, Cannon-Mac, you know, I had a chance to see them against Trinity as well. We can talk about that in a little bit, but obviously, you know, not as deep and not as strong as they have been in the past, but still hanging into the thick of things, wrestling the Erie Prep tough. But how about Latrobe as well? They beat an up-and-coming Connellsville team, you know, so Latrobe improving on their performance, and they battled Erie Prep tough.
Yeah, I thought the here were Latrobe. You know, I thought Latrobe wrestled really, really solid against some very tough competition. And, you know, to be honest, when you looked at Cannon-Mac on paper, you thought, okay, you know, they're going to keep it close with Erie Prep, but I didn't know if Latrobe was going to be able to keep it as close with Cathedral Prep. And you look in that Cannon-Mac Erie Prep match, I think there was at least 3 or 4 matches that came down to just the decision. Brandon Damey fell 4-2 to Sam Stab. Van D only beat Halp 7-4. Stark beat O'Donohue 6-5. That's a swing match right there. Cayman Smith beat Costa Moore 2-0. Marco Ramos beat Elijah Hunt 8-4. I think that Stark match, that Cayman Smith match, those can go different ways. Panera Johnson got a decision against Martini. Stafford beat Blassie. He beat him 4-2. So those are all matches I think could be toss-up matches, to be honest. So although, yes, Kane and Matt came out on the losing end of this, I would not be surprised to see if this score flipped because, number one, Erie Prep had 2 forfeits in the match. They forfeited 89 and 106. So if they can get someone plugged in there, I don't know if they have someone injured or out, but really, Kane and Mac, they could have just flipped a few matches, and this would have been an entirely different match. So I was impressed with them, but I was also really impressed with Latrobe. We got to see some big-time matches, to be honest with you. There was quite a few matches there where I was surprised to see some of the results. If you look at the Kane and Mac Connellsville match, Andrew Binney beat up Jacob Layden 12-6. I thought that was a good match. Jace Ross, a state medalist, beat Costamore, a 2-time state qualifier, in sudden victory 4-2. Kessler was able to beat Martini 6-1. So that was a good match for them. But, Connellsville probably, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not as high on Connellsville as I was coming into this, but I think I'm just more high now on Latrobe because Latrobe was able to battle with Cathedral Prep. They had a couple guys really show up big for them to get falls. Kilkeary was able to pin Stab. Nathan Roth got a major decision over Kamen Smith, and it's great to see Nathan Roth back on the mat. He's obviously he was injured last year at the regional tournament, but he wrestled well this past weekend. I think he's going to be a force this year. And and we talked about how good Kiski was, but in the match against Connellsville, I don't know if you noticed this, but Chad Ozias beat Vincent Kilkeary, Greg. So that was a pretty surprising result for me. Kilkeary, a returning state medalist or state champion, number 1 in the nation at 106 pounds. He hasn't been down to 106 yet this season. But Chad Ozias, props to him for beating a state champion. I don't care if it's at 120 or 113. He had a nice win there over Kilkeary. So, what does this say about Kilkeary, and, are we going to see him down at 106 sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, dropping that loss, I did not catch that result. But, yeah, I mean, I guess in that, you look at that breadth. I mean, Kilkeary essentially a 106-pounder going all the way up to 120, but you still expect him to win that kind of match. It was tight, 6-5, but, loss is a loss, and it's definitely one where you have to wonder, okay, how long until Kilkeary gets down? You mentioned Nate Roth as well, and boy, he would have been a state qualifier, right? I mean,
he probably would have been a state medalist too. I think.
Yeah.
Last year, I think he would have been a state medalist.
Right, and so to see him back on the mat, like you mentioned, it was awesome, and he performed really well. I mean, in addition to what you mentioned too, he picked up a fall over Costa Moore, who was a 2-time state qualifier. So
right.
Just to be able to see him back on the mat was huge for Latrobe. But yeah, definitely, I was really impressed with how Latrobe wrestled, and a lot of tight matches overall.
There was a ton of tight matches. In fact, we saw a rematch of True Power. We saw Panera Johnson and Jared Kessler wrestle. You called that match at True Power. Kessler was coming out firing in all cylinders at 152 pounds. Well, these two met again. They wrestled in the 3rd and 4th place match at States last year. So this was just another meeting between these two guys, and Panera Johnson comes away with a 3-1 sudden victory win over Kessler. So again, you look at where they start and where they finish. Panera had a great Super 32 after True Power, was able to get a win here in overtime. Jace Ross got pinned by Kamen Smith. He was winning 4-3 when he got pinned. So I think, Connellsville, they've got some work cut out for them. I think that, their guys are going to go back in the room and they're going to fix some things, and, they'll be at Powerade, and we'll see if we can flip the script on a few of these.
No doubt about it. Let's go ahead. We'll look at the Seneca Valley duels, but before we do that, let's first throw it to Nick Fuller of Tactical Mind to hear about some of the things he has going on.
This is the Tactical Mind, and I work with athletes in the field of sports psychology as a cognitive performance coach. Within 5 minutes of talking to a parent, they make the connection right away that this would be great for my kid to have when they're in college, when they're just going through the ups and downs of high school. Who wouldn't benefit from having more self-awareness? Who wouldn't benefit from having the ability to self-regulate our emotions and our counterproductive thoughts? Who wouldn't benefit from having more optimism, not just on the field, but in life?
Want to mention, if you use the promo code POWER, you'll receive 50% off your initial consultation. So again, use the promo code POWER, P-O-W-E-R, and you'll receive 50% off your initial consultation. Seneca Valley Duels also took place this past weekend. Wrestling there, in addition to Seneca Valley, Quaker Valley, Plum, Mount Lebanon, Hampton, and Franklin Regional. And Seneca Valley ends up coming away with the championship, going 5-0 on the tournament. And overall, just another impressive display by Seneca Valley here as they get further in and trying to contend here in the WPIAL.
Yeah, I thought they wrestled really, really strong. We saw them at Reynolds, defeating Reynolds and Sagertown, but this was a different test for them, having Franklin Regional, right? Because Franklin Regional has a couple big studs. They matched up well with them, I thought. Chappell was able to beat Nate Stone 6'2", at 132 pounds. Finn Solomon was down to 38, and he got a fall over Wayne Pert. But then, Alejandro, he got a decision over Garrett Thompson. That's a 4-0 one, and Antonio Emilio got a 5-0 win over Gavin Beck. So, I give credit to Franklin Regional guys. I mean, Garrett Thompson is a guy who's, again, been on the bubble. He's been around for years now, and he kept it close with Allie. Gavin Beck able to keep it close. Liam Volk-Kloss was able to get a fall. TJ Border was able to get a fall. So those were the difference. And, of course, the forfeits, right? Because Franklin Regional had to forfeit several weights, including heavyweight and 106. They were without Tyler Capusta. So Connor Smith was able to get a forfeit. Overall, Seneca Valley, they just get better and better, I think, as the year goes on. The more I look at them, the more I think they're going to be really tough. Obviously Waynesburg's the team to beat, but Seneca Valley's not entirely too far behind.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And you look at, how the rankings may have changed after a week of wrestling, and I don't know if there's much to change. Waynesburg still remains that top team, but, I think right now is it Seneca Valley or is it Hempfield? I mean, you could probably.
I think it's for sure right now it's Seneca Valley. Hempfield is not where I thought they were. They're missing. They have some guys that aren't in the lineup right now, and I don't know if I don't have any inside information to know whether they're coming into the lineup or not. But they're not quite where I thought they were. Seneca Valley is really doing well, so I think it's no doubt Waynesburg, Seneca Valley now that we've seen action for a couple weeks. But I think Hempfield, Canon-Mac, right there in the mix. I think they're in another tier. I think they're in another tier there, and I think that they're gonna. I think they can compete and wrestle well, but I think Waynesburg, Seneca Valley, kind of up in their own little section there, with Waynesburg maybe being a little bit higher, because Waynesburg is like Nick Feldman, they're on another level.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and we'll talk about Canon-Mac in a second, but you still have them in that 4, 5, 6 range. North Allegheny climbing into there as well, and now seeing Latrobe and Connellsville wrestle. Obviously Connellsville's got a little bit of work to do, but Latrobe, looking impressive. They might be able to get into that story as well. Some scores from around the WPIAL as well, and one of those was a match I got to be at. Cannon McMillan over Trinity, 47-19. I guess the first thing, Trinity, just a lot of forfeits. They gave up 6 total forfeits in the match, or 5, I believe. 5 forfeits, and Cannon McMillan had to give up 1. But, overall, I mean, I think it was just disappointing for Trinity because we talked about the 4 incoming freshmen for them. Only 2, Blake Reiner and Bodie Morgan, wrestled. The other 2 did not wrestle in the match. So it was just, I think, definitely disappointing that they had to give up so many forfeits. Cannon McMillan overall, though, they definitely have solid wrestlers. You're missing that stud who's going to go out there and probably get you 5 or 6 points every single time, like that
Right.
Garrett Ninehouse. They don't have that this year, which is definitely going to hurt. But I think where they are is they are solid in just about every weight class, and outside of 285, where they were able to fill it in the duels, but they did not fill it against Trinity. They have wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean they have guys that are going to battle, right? They don't give up bonus points too often. I think they benefit from having the Martinis in the lineup, right? You have Johnny and Nico, and it's ironic that their debut for KMAC was against Trinity, their former school, so that was kind of weird. And as you mentioned, Trinity being without Robbie Allison, or I think they're probably or Kale Nicola, because neither one of them have wrestled yet for them. So I'm not sure what's going on there, if those two freshmen just aren't able to wrestle or not. I personally think Cannon Mac, just by virtue of them being Cannon Mac, is going to do well. I thought Ramos, he's a guy that not many people know. It's younger brother of Giomar Ramos. I think he's going to be a key factor. Tyler Sewell is going to be a key factor as well. I think there's a lot of guys that, like you said, there's not that stud per se. There's not that guy that, anchors the lineup, but you have a lot of consistency throughout. You still have a Rohaley. You still have Costa Moore. So, and freshmen like Andrew Binney, can they be, relied on to get bonus points when they need it? And that's the question. And we saw them push Cathedral Prep, but it's going to be a whole different story when you wrestle a team like Waynesburg, because there's nowhere to run and hide against a team like Waynesburg. There's so many studs throughout that lineup that it's just, you're not running away from that. And it's a matter of, if you give up those bonus points, those are just going to keep on piling up, and it's like I said, this is not the Cannon Mac of years past, or at least last couple years, but they're still able to battle, and I still think they're not gonna go away without a fight. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're going to compete in just about every weight class. I mean, there's maybe a couple where they're probably going to lose more often than not, but I think for the most part, they're going to be competitive in just about every single one. And in saying that, I think, that 4 spot is definitely, I think, secured at this point. And you can maybe make the name of 5 if you want to make the argument for North Allegheny, but I think they can compete with Hempfield too right now. So, I think it's definitely a team that, is going to be a tough out when you look at the postseason. A couple other matches from around the WPIAL. Norwin had defeated Latrobe 40-27. So we talked about their individual performance at the Midwinter Mayhem. They get a big win over Latrobe, a Latrobe team. We were just talking about how impressed we were with them at the Cannon Mac duels. So Norwin looking like a solid competitive team as well into that 4, 5, 6 range. Hempfield defeated Greensburg-Salem 47-16. Greensburg-Salem over McKeesport 39-29. North Allegheny beat Pine-Richland, a team that we just talked about as well. They beat them 44-20 this past week. And just a couple of notes on the AA side, both Burgestown and Mount Pleasant, the two teams we talked about, maybe could they compete with Burrell? They're both at 3-0 to start the year.
Yeah, no, I mean they are, but Burrell's what? How many is it this year now, Greg?
Hey, we gotta make it exciting,
Well, I know, but how many years in a row has Burrell won the WPIAL?
Oh man, off the top of my head, I want to say it's
like 14, 15.
Yeah, I was thinking 14, 15.
It's up there, man. So yeah. I don't care. I don't care if Burrell goes they don't win another match the rest of the regular season. I'm still picking Burrell. I just there's something in it about them. They're really good. So yes, I think Mount Pleasant is a threat, and I think if they can get the right matchups, but Burrell is still Burrell. And you had talked about some of the matches. Norwin, I thought, looked really impressive against Latrobe. I thought Norwin overall this past weekend looked really good. You had mentioned about Greensburg-Salem and Hempfield wrestling. The big match there was Billy McChesney from Greensburg-Salem wrestling Isaiah Vance. That's a 1-2 in the state, or I'm sorry, 2-3 in the state. Isaiah Vance 2 and McChesney 3, 2 state medals last year, and Vance is able to get a decision. I think it was 3-0. So 2 big time guys wrestling, right away in the early parts of the season. But Double A. I feel like we don't have much to report on in Double A because I feel like we didn't get to see a whole lot of Double A action this past week. Quaker Valley, I thought, wrestled well at the Seneca Valley Duels. They just don't have. They wrestled. Again, they're wrestling a lot of AAA schools, but they just don't have, I don't think, the full lineup that these other schools do. And, they were without Connor Redinger. Kutchember had a good tournament. Richie, both Richies had a good tournament, but, I don't know. It's like Burl, and then you just kind of have like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 teams up, like, hey, can you battle? I don't know. But I'm picking Burl for sure.
No doubt I am as well. I think they are reloaded for another run, especially with the fact when you get Corrado and, as well back for another year. It's going to be extremely tough for anyone to beat them. I think they're going to continue their reign as WPIAL champions. Looking ahead for this week, it's tough to look ahead. It honestly is. A lot of matches and are scheduled for this week. But, for example, this Wednesday is supposed to be Buchanan, McMillan, Waynesburg. It's postponed to next Wednesday. A lot of and then I believe also there was in AA, for instance, McGuffey and Best Center postponed. So there's a lot of matches that end up taking place within WPIAL or supposed to take place that get rescheduled. And as opposed to looking ahead to this week, I think the conversation that we need to have is, what are they going to do in February? If there is any kind of, come into contact with somebody, contact tracing, you have to be out for 10 days, you have to quarantine for so many days. How is it that wrestling is going to have back-to-back tournaments? I know they want to have a section tournament and a WPIAL tournament and a Southwest. I just don't know how they're going to be able to pull off all these back-to-backs.
I don't know either, Greg. And, it's scary because we saw some of the top teams get affected by this. Waynesburg had to shut down for a little bit. And there was a lot of guys that, they got held out because of contact tracing. And like you said, when it comes to February, how's this all going to pan out? Because, I can tell you from personal experience, we're way behind on the vaccination of Pennsylvania. I don't know what we're doing here in PA, but for the vaccines they're not getting to people, not fast enough, not like that we thought they were. I don't know what's going to happen, Greg. I would expect most teams, like, you have to have your bubbles, right? I think most teams have preached to their wrestlers that, hey, you've got to have your close-knit people that you're around, and that's it, right? You can't be going out, you can't be doing stupid things, because it could cost you your season, and it really could cost you your teammate's season, right? It's because, again, I don't have to be sick and symptomatic. I don't have to be showing any signs. However, I'm around somebody who is sick, that changes the game. Now we're all shut down for 10 days. So, I think a lot of teams are hesitant and a little apprehensive about having, the team, especially when you look at the team portion of this, because remember, we're getting right into teams in a couple weeks. So imagine if Waynesburg had to shut down before the team tournament and they're out. I mean, like, that's a reality, though. That's a reality that is it's possible. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I would not want to be a coach, an athletic director in a high school right now, because you got a lot of tough decisions. You're kind of being pulled in different ways. You want to compete, but yet you got to be careful. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams handle the uncertainty of this. And you had mentioned about the team tournament coming up, and I had a couple conversations over the weekend at Monroeville Convention Center about the team tournament, the state dual team tournament, and I got a lot of people were kind of saying what we were saying, like, how in the heck are you going to keep a kid who loses in the subsection, and you're going to tell him to keep your weight? You got to come back in a month and a half and compete in the state dual team tournament. I don't know if I see it happening, to be honest, but who knows? And right now, the only really big thing scheduled for this weekend is the North Allegheny 8-team individual. I believe it's Greenville. I know some of the teams: Greenville, North Allegheny, Norwin, Trinity. I don't know who else is coming, but those are at least the ones I thought are coming. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of uncertainty, Greg. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess the one thing with the state team championship is they'd only take the champions. I think the tough part about only taking the champions is how many years in a row have we had Nazareth and Bethlehem Catholic from the same district
right.
finishing 1-2 or 1-3 in the state, or the WPIAL for that matter. When you look at, the success we've seen from, Waynesburg, Canumac, Seneca Valley. I mean, they're finishing top 5 or 6 in the state. All 3 teams. To only take one, you're definitely taking away a medal from one of those teams. It's just, I think it's just going to be interesting on the individual side, because you knock out a team like, let's say, Waynesburg. You can't advance to the next week. If you don't wrestle that week, you can't wrestle the following week. So you're eliminating a lot of people, but at the same time, you can't, it'd be one thing to say, well, Waynesburg got knocked off, so we're going to postpone the tournament a week. Well, you can't do that, because what if the next week someone from another school who has a state champion or a state medalist who could be a state champ, like let's say Mount Pleasant and Dayton Pittsburgh can't wrestle. So now you're going to shut it down for him. You can't make special guidelines.
Right. Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, there's no way to put it. It's just a mess. And like I said, I'm not envious of a athletic director or a coach right now, because there's a lot of tough decisions they have to make, and I certainly wouldn't want to be making them. So we'll keep you posted, though. We'll keep you posted on what's happening and what's going on. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like, I think with a lot of the teams, you would think it's tough to do, because sometimes wrestling rooms are small, but keep certain weights to certain sides of the practice room, just so that way then if something happens like that, it only shuts down a part of your team, not the whole team.
Yeah, I've heard of teams, out east and maybe some in the central part that said they split up their practices into 2. Like you have an A and B, and based on weights and things like that, to kind of have some distancing, but also just to eliminate that quote community spread of having 30 potential wrestlers all in the same room, and contact tracing says now you all have to be out. So you got to think outside the box, right? You got to do some, especially if you're one of those top teams. I would think you want to do things to protect your wrestlers and protect your team, but I don't know how that is, because you can go to Powerade at the Monroeville Convention Center, someone on your team has test positive, and boom, all of a sudden things start falling apart. So I don't know, but I certainly don't want to see people holding out until the postseason, because that's not fun either. There's no real easy solution here, Greg.
Well, and if you hold out to the postseason too, you come in and you're wrestling rusty, and you're not going to be wrestling your peak performances, which you need to do, because guess what? There's not as many wrestlers qualifying.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah, it's a catch-22. It's what do they say? You're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
No doubt about it. Well, I want to thank Kellen Laffey for joining us on the show, and I want to thank you all for listening in to week 2 of WarUp on the WPIAL. Jeff and I will be back next week recapping the wrestling action that does take place and get you ready to go for the following week. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Greg.